Hi, I'm AJ. I'm a deployed engineer at Graphite. In this video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to stack using the Graphite CLI and PR page. Let's first start with the CLI. We have an example repository here, and I'm going to show you how to create branches and make changes alongside your stack. You can think of the Graphite CLI as that we sit on top of Git and we store additional metadata to track the relationships between the branches. We'll show this to you to make it easier and do any necessary plumbing in the case you're making changes along your stack. So let me show you the difference here. So traditionally I'll run git branch to see a list of my branches. The equivalent command for Graphite is gt to invoke our CLI, log short. And here you can see the concept Graphite has introduced with our CLI. In vanilla Git, there is no first class relationship between the branches. They might store the same commit history, but there's no notion of one branch being a parent or child of the other. You'd have to keep track of this yourself. But the Graphite CLI does this for you. So let's just break down what we're looking at here. We have 3 stacks that are branched off of main, denoted by these vertical bars. 2 of the branches are stacks of 1, which is common in the case that you don't need to break everything up into many branches. And in this specific case, they're bug fixes. So we have fix crash or reload, which is branched on top of main, and then account for empty state, which is branched on top of main. What's more interesting here is that we have a stack of 3 branches, and this is denoted by an activity feed feature, each separated by individual components. So we have the Open API specification, which is branched on top of main, our Server API components, which is branched off of Open API spec, and then we have our front-end components, which are dependent on the Server API changes that we've made, stacked on top of it. So the stack lets us break these changes into separate PRs, while also unifying them in that they all make up the activity feed feature. So if I want to check out a new branch, I can run GT checkout, and I have this interactive view in which I can select the branch I want to move to, which I'll go to the top of the stack. And now you'll see denoted by the shaded dot that I'm now branched on top of activity feed front end. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. We'll do a pass through to Git when necessary. And in this case, GT checkout and Git checkout are functionally equivalent. So let's simulate what it looks like to make a change and create a new branch on our stack, as well as push a PR. So I'm going to simulate a change by creating a text file, and then I'm going to go ahead and run the command gt create. This is the command you're going to want to run when you want to create a branch off your stack. It's going to ask me if I want to commit my changes, which I'm going to say yes, and then I can go ahead and add a commit message here. So we've simplified some git commands to avoid redundancy and make it easier for you. This is the equivalent of running git checkout -b, git add period, and git commit. So now when I run gt log short, you'll see here that there's a new branch insert b.txt, which is branched on top of activity feed front end. Let's say I'm happy with the change that I've added to my stack, and I want to go ahead and push the changes to remote. I'm going to run the command gt submit, and what this is going to do is traverse my stack and effectively push the changes to remote, as well as create a draft PR if it hasn't been created already. So you're going to see here it's going to run git push, and it's going to create draft PRs for me. It even opens up the draft view for me, so I can go ahead and get straight into filling out my description and reviewers. So by default, these are draft PRs. I can go ahead and generate AI descriptions for each of them. I have a whole video on what it's like to review a PR in Graphite, so I'll keep things pretty high level here. And one thing you'll notice is that our PR page is natively stack aware, so I can very easily go between the changes that we saw locally, and it makes things much more convenient when reviewing each PR. So now that I've generated descriptions, I'm going to go ahead and publish all of the PRs. So now these PRs have been published and CI has gone ahead and ran on all of them. We can see here in this branch that our CI is failing. We summarize failing CI for you, so we can see that we have a required port to be 8,000 when instead it's set to 3,000. And when I scroll down, we can see that the port is set to 3,000. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how making a change mid-stack is very easy using Graphite. This is a very common pattern where either CI is broken or our teammates have left a comment that we need to address. And using Graphite makes it much more convenient to make changes mid-stack. So I'm going to jump back to my IDE here, and I'm going to check out the branch that has failing CI. So in this case, this is activity feed server API, and then I'm going to modify the file with the port variable. Now that I've changed the variable to be 8,000, I'm going to go ahead and run the command gt modify. You're going to run this when you want to make changes in your current branch and ensure the stacking relationships are maintained. And you can see here that it's going to ask me to commit my file changes, and then it's going to do things that you would expect. First, it's going to commit my changes. By default, we'll do this using git commit amend rather than creating a new commit. This is because we find users can get the most out of the stacking workflow when there's a one-to-one relationship with commits, branches, and PRs. Generally, stacking allows you to make PRs so small that you'll only need one commit per PR in most cases. So now you'll see here that we've modified server API, and we need to make sure that the child PRs are pointed to the latest version of server API. So you can see here it's restacked activity feed front end on top of server API because we've modified that. And then this will also modify activity feed front end. So we need to make sure that insert b.txt is branched off of the latest version of activity feed front end. So this is automatically rebasing child PRs to make sure that they're based on the latest version mid-stack. If you were to do this in vanilla Git, you'd have to check out each branch and manually rebase, which can get very tedious over time, especially when you're dealing with very large stacks. And since we fixed CI, we can go ahead and run GT submit to push our changes to remote. And now when I go to the PR page, we'll see that the port has been changed. I can actually use this version selector here to compare what has changed. If I were to step away from a PR and I want to know the diff, I can very easily see that this port line has been modified. So in conclusion, the Graphite CLI stores the relationships between the branches. We show this to you to make it easier. We have commands that simplify both creating and modifying branches, mid-stack, top of the stack, without needing to manually rebase. And you'll see that this saves you much more time needing to worry about the Git wrangling, especially with really large stacks, so you can focus on what matters most, which is development. There's still so many commands that we could cover, but just wanted to give you an overview on what it looks like to create, modify, and submit. Thanks.